What's up, guys? Alright, no school today. It's snowing. You know, and when that happens, I get groceries and basically, you end up stuck in the house. And that's where some of the weirder videos come up. But that's not what this is today. I have a Howlermouse page on Facebook. A few videos back, a couple weeks ago, I provided a link, said it was there. The link is can be found on my channel page, or I might put the link down below. And I'm not whoring it out or anything like that. But what I did is, when I put the page up, one of the first things I said on there is that if somebody has a request, they can, for a video that they want me to do, or maybe a book I can talk about a little bit, throw some trivia out there on it and stuff. A couple people chimed in, and there's a lot of Swamp Thing. A lot of people want some Swamp Thing. But I went with a guy who's watched my videos for quite a while. He's talked to me maybe once or twice, kind of in comments and stuff. He chimes in on Facebook every now and then. And it's our good friend Adrian Starkey from over the pond over there in Great Britain. And he actually asked me to kind of talk about two books that I've already included in two separate videos back in the day. And one's an X-Men book. I did a video on that because it was somebody had a contest going about what's your favorite X-Men book, I think. And the other one was in my top 10 list, a book called H.E.R.O from 2003-2004. Now, that was the deal. You request a video, I'll give you credit. And it's taken me a little bit, because what happened is when I did the book on the heroes, the H.E.R.O number 11, which I'll show here in just a second, I love the book. I don't know what your subscription feed it looks like for all the YouTube comic book community members on here and stuff, but mine is starting to show a lot of rants, a lot of rant videos. And some of it I'm just kind of nodding my head, because I'm hearing a lot of what I was trying to say over the past year and a half about what's going on with comics. Event burnout, decompressed stories that are 6 issues long with a trade paperback in mind that could be told in 2 issues, stuff like that. Nothing's really happening. Character development is just not there. A lot of these books are in the exact same place that they were 2 years ago when they started out. Or you're losing interest because the book that you're investing yourself in, you already know is going to be rebooted between 12 and 15 issues here lately. I think the highest one that made it so far is Daredevil, and I think it's ended at issue 36 or something, and they're going to redo it with the same team, the writer and stuff. So what's happened is that these are 2 books where they're single issue stories. They're solid, beginning, middle, and end. And I liked them because it was just strong storytelling, or so I thought. Because when I talked about the H.E.R.O number 11 book, it's a Cavemen story. Actually, Adrian Starkey kind of got me thinking, because he got the book. Several other people got the book. They liked it. They loved the last page of the book. And what I didn't catch on is that the Caveman had a very lonely existence. And it didn't dawn on me, And then the X-Men book, that's what I'm going to show. The whole starting point for the book, the trigger of the book that gets the story going, is Colossus breaking up with Kitty. We're going to talk about those. And this is about, the theme of this one is really about being part of a team, loyalty, getting some common sense beaten your head, beaten to your head to wake up and stop being so selfish and insensitive and stuff to those around you. These are 2 polar opposite books. This one is being part of more or less a team, a family, a relationship, or something like that. And the other one's about you end up being alone. I thought it was really interesting that Adrian requested these 2 books, and they're actually 2 things that happen to people as they get older. I was like, wow, I didn't catch it. So maybe I was catching on some things. I'm going to do the X-Men book back first. Now, I'm doing this off the hip. I have not gone back and reread these. I've read them off and on for a while. Okay. Back around 2003, this book came out, and it's called H.E.R.O. It's by a guy named Will Pfeiffer. And this here's number 1, if it's going to show up. Okay. And it ended up running for 22 issues. Okay. And what they did is they took the dial H for Hero. I don't have them all, but they have the, and I've ended up reading them all though, but the dial H for Hero concept, and it's not a Vertigo book, but it's definitely updated. It's not the old dial from the Silver Age. The Silver Age, the dial H for Hero had a guy named Robbie Reed in it, and he would turn the dial like an old telephone dial, spell out hero, and he would turn into a different hero every time. And what was cool about it is that kids, fans, whoever of the book would send in their drawings with a little background and powers of a hero, and this is who he would turn into, and they would have a little caption giving credit to the person who sent it in. Okay. Well, in this one, it's still a dial, but it's buttons. They spell out hero, and this book is more about the people that find the dial, normal everyday people, a little bit about their lives, and what happens when they turn the dial. Now, if I'd gotten this book from issue 1 and read the first four or five issues, I wouldn't have stuck with it, because the teenage angst in the first couple of them is just horrible. I was just like, oh my God, I never would have stuck to the book. Okay, basically, you know, I'm not going to review the whole series, but every arc is different because it's a different person who gets this. And eventually, what happens is that all the people who get a hold of the dial and get the hero, they end up keeping a piece of it in them, sort of. And Robbie Reed starts popping back up, and I think the last 7 issues or something like that, everybody who's ever had anything to do with the dial comes together to stop the serial killer who got powers from the dial. One man gets turned into a woman, and you get to see what happens with a man being inside of a woman's body, things like that. One guy, what happens when that person isn't a hero, you know, he's a psychopath, and another guy is a serial killer, and he ends up becoming the lackey to the serial killer when all these people come back together. And Robbie still has the power in him, and it's a little bit of a dark story. I'm surprised it wasn't under the Vertigo banner. But the book went on, and like I said, it ended at number 22 with a definite end. Okay. But the book that I picked up in the middle of all this book wasn't on the stands when I was, you know, interested in hearing about it and seeing an ad for it here and there, man. But it's going through, I can't remember if it was a quarter bin or a 50-cent bin, and this book came up. Now, I have a thing for cavemen, primitive stuff. You know, I love Devil Dinosaur and Kong the Untamed, Anthro, I like Commandy, you know, post-apocalyptic stuff where it's all primitive stuff, right? So when I see H.E.R.O, and I see a caveman, and I see a cover like this, yes, I'm going to get it. Good and cheap. And this is one of my favorite comics. Of everything I got, this is the one where some of the magic happened and stuff. I can read this more than about anything else that I've got, and that's just me. And it's written by Will Pfeiffer. Will Pfeiffer is pretty much famous for his Catwoman run. He really hasn't wrote that many comics. He's been off and on. And this came out 10 years ago, I think. 10 years ago, I think now. It is 2014. And the artist that does it is Kano. Alright? So basically what happens is that there's 2 sets of archaeologists. One now in Metropolis, and in a cave underneath the city Metropolis, they find this cave with these immaculate cave drawings on them, and they're actually embedded into the stone. But what's amazing about it is that these things are intricate. They have perspective, like thousands of years before they saw anything like this, before man was capable of figuring out how to draw like that. And it's things all around the world. And then there's another set of archaeologists in London, and I think it's like 1897, and then we see them again in 1911. And what they're seeing is they're seeing remnants of what our caveman has left behind. But it starts out as nomadic cavemen, however you want to say it. And, you know, they're traveling looking for food. Looks like it's during the Ice Age. It's called A Great Leap Forward. And as all of a sudden, in the middle of the cavemen, the dial H falls to Earth. And it lands in between them down there at the bottom. They're all looking at it. It's still hot. And a grunt and groan. And one caveman is brave enough to reach out and touch it and look at it and pick it up. You gotta understand, this is a very primitive time, and if something fell from the sky, it probably scared the shit out of you. You know, what I like about H.E.R.O by Joe Kubert is in those stories, he lets you know that it's a very selfish time, because everybody has this self-preservation. They're not going to risk their necks to help somebody. You know, they know they're going to get hurt. And that's what made H.E.R.O spectacular because he would do it. He'd think about it, and finally he would do it. So one caveman gets on there, plays with the buttons, and he turns into Super Caveman. And it never turns off. All of a sudden he becomes the alpha male, and he saves them from mammoths coming at him. And he does it by flying up to them, and he punches them, and he takes one finger and he just makes like a bullet hole, right, and crushes their, goes into their brain and takes them out. And he becomes worshipped, and everybody loves him and stuff. But the archaeologists over the years start digging up these bones, and they're just like, it's fascinating. That's a finger-sized hole in the skull, and they're just trying to figure it out. Maybe it was a meteorite that came down, And I think, then years later, like in 1911, they find a bunch of saber-toothed tigers with the same holes, and they're like, that reminds us of the mammoth. And these are thousands of miles away. Maybe these saber-toothed tigers must have like stabbed each other in the head with their saber teeth. And there's like the proof's there. Sounds unbelievable. But what had happened was that our hero, our super caveman, ends up becoming the alpha male as everybody is kept in food and stuff, and he gets all the women at once. And all the men get mad about it. So they rush him in the cave after he's had his way, and they scorn him, and they're ooting at him. And he flies off, and he loses his tribe. And as he leaves, he just flies and flies and flies till he comes to the beach, and he draws a picture of himself. I can go through the whole thing, and he goes from cave to cave, and he gets attacked by saber-toothed tigers, like I said, and he takes them down and he eats. He's well fed, and that's all he's doing. He's flying around the world. And I always thought this was just fascinating because, like, I spent a lot of time hitchhiking. For like 9 months, and saw a lot of things, a lot of walking and back roads and seeing woods and getting odd jobs where I'm like building houses for 2 weeks when I don't know what I'm doing on a construction crew, and riding shotgun with truckers and getting made, and finding little lakes that I've never heard of on these back roads that I can never find again, up and down the eastern states and stuff like that. I thought it was just fascinating, man. He's seen all these things flying around the world. And he keeps going back to this one cave, which ends up being in Metropolis, and he has just drew all these pictures. It's not going to show up, of everything that he's seen. And now he's an old man. His last picture was him drawing himself as an old man. And I want to show you the last page, because what happens is that now that he's an old man, and he's flown off, and he's getting old, he looks up at the moon. He's been trying to see everything in the world that he can see, flying around, finding all this stuff. And he takes the dial and he throws it back up into space. And the next thing you know, you see this picture drawn on the ground of the Earth. And then you realize you see the craters, and you realize you're on the moon. The archaeologists in Metropolis are wondering, well, how did this man see the world? Who was this caveman? Whatever happened to him? And then we find out that he finally got to see everything in the world. He flew to the moon, drew the picture, and he died. And when I saw that last page the first time I watched, man, I'm not going to lie, man, I was about to tear up, man. I thought this was just a beautiful, wonderful story. And then someone on the line, Adrian Starkey, maybe it was on my Facebook page or something, he told me he got the book, and I'm like, man, I'm glad you enjoyed it. And he was like, that last page. And he wasn't the only one to say that. That last page apparently topped it off for a lot of people. And then he said he was very lonely. And I was just like, oh no, and that kind of changed how I saw the story. And then I kind of looked around, and living on my own for the last couple years and all that stuff, and I was just like, oh no, okay. So then we come to the X-Men. Now this book is from 30 years ago. This blows my mind. One's from 10 years ago, and one's from 30 years ago, and this story still holds up. But in the Secret Wars, this is X-Men 183, Uncanny X-Men 183, and as you can see, there's in their civilian clothes, we have the Juggernaut and we have Colossus. Okay? And what is going on? This book opens up. Colossus is sitting there with Kitty. They're having some awkward talks. Kitty knows what's coming because in Secret Wars, Colossus met a female alien, if you will, that he fell in love with. She was a healer, and Colossus got hurt, and he ended up spending time with her. She healed, healed him and stuff, and he fell for her. Meanwhile, right before all this happened, Kitty and Wolverine became close in Japan, hanging out in Japan with their Kitty Pryde and Wolverine miniseries. And if you knew the X-Men and stuff, they were tight and they were mutants, and all they have is each other. And it just starts out with, Colossus is just all in his own head and stuff, right? And he thinks this is just going to go smooth and she's going to understand. He thinks Kitty's on the same page as he is about them breaking up. And he flats out tell her, there's no tact to it. He's like, I met someone and we fell in love. And he's breaking up to it, and you can hear what's going through Kitty's head. He's like, trouble is, she's making excuses for him. Trouble is, you're too honorable to lie. That's one of the things I love about you. And he just goes on, and it's no big deal. He's just kind of like smiling at her, and like, yep, it's over. I fell in love with someone else, and she's dying inside, just dying. And what happens is that she ends up going back to the mansion, or her heart broke, and who does she end up crying on? His brother, or Colossus's sister. Her brother just broke her heart, and she's even saying he's such an ass. And it is just terrible. I mean, this is just, you're just reading this, and you're just seeing somebody fall to pieces and stuff. And they have some other things going on, little background stuff, and then all of a sudden, old Wolverine decides he's going to take Peter out, and he's going to teach him a lesson. He's like, your jacket, I ain't asking, you're going out. And they get in the car, and Nightcrawler pops up, and he jumps in the car and stinks him out, because way I read this, he was like, oh shit, I better be there, because I don't know what Logan's going to do to him and stuff. So they're sitting at a bar in Manhattan, Monahan's, and I think that popped up a couple times. And you start looking in the background. There's a story going on in the background, and as you look in the background, and they're all sitting around, Wolverine is sitting there trying to lay into him. And, he's just got a mad on at him for breaking his heart. And it's not so much that Colossus wanted to break up with Kitty Pryde. It was just how insensitive he was, and how he just threw away all that loyalty and everything like that. Like, she was just, Pete's such a romantic and stuff. He just scraped her off, shit on a shoe. And then you start looking in the backgrounds here, and you see the big guy with this brunette hanging all over him. And that's the Juggernaut. And now here's where the irony comes up, man. She's all over the Juggernaut. Juggernaut's just you find out he's just trying to just like go out and get a little. That's all there is to it. I mean, Chris Claremont wrote this very well where it got by. Not a lot of people, got into it. And I'm looking at mine. Well, this is interesting. I never noticed this, man, but there's no comic code approval on this. Probably where it's a direct market edition. But anyway, so she's sitting there, man, and he's like, you're fantasizing over this, and you're securing the knowledge that you're all right, and all this stuff. Well, what about her? And you profess you love someone, and he's just not getting it. He's just not getting it. So Wolverine sniffs around, and he smells the Juggernaut, and he sets it up to where there's an accident where Colossus ends up spilling his beer on the Juggernaut. And right when he's like got that girl right where he wants him, man. So this fight ends up being about a piece of ass. Juggernaut is now pissed off because he's trying to get some, and he just screwed it up, and he comes out fighting after he shoves him. So, being the X-Men, Nightcrawler's ready to jump right out there. Wolverine stops him, and he says, nope, he's going to teach him the lesson that I was going to teach him. And then all of a sudden, you down here at the bottom, you start seeing the brunette moving on. Okay? She's moving on, and you see her with another guy. What's funny is that guy kind of looks like John Byrne. I never noticed that before. So basically, he's sitting there just telling him, I'm just out trying to have some fun. Spider-Man just put me in concrete, and it took me weeks to crawl out, and I feel like, doing this stuff. So he picks up the bar, and he just smashes Colossus with the bar. And of course, Colossus jumps out there, and he just doesn't get it. He's a glutton for punishment. And the Juggernaut just continues to bash his head in, to the point that everybody runs out, and he just drops the whole damn building on him. So Wolverine is sitting there just kind of half laughing about it. Nightcrawler's sitting there like he can't believe we ought to sit there and did it. Juggernaut throws some money at Wolverine, tells him, give it to the barkeep, that'll pay for everything, and then he does it. He's like, Colossus, why didn't you help me? He's like, really? You expected us to be there? Like the way Kitty expected you to be there? He goes, he just goes on and saying you're ignorant and you're an asshole and stuff, man. He goes, we're a team. We stick by with each other, and you just threw all that away. You didn't even consider her feelings. You just thought, you fantasized about being in love with some alien, and after all, everything that you've been through with the X-Men and with Kitty, that's how you handled it, you know, and stuff like that. And that's what gets me, man. He's talking about loyalty. You know what I mean? He's talking about trust. He's talking about sticking with your friends and sticking together as X-Men and stuff, the way people, in my mind, are supposed to do, like when they're in relationships and stuff. He's talking more than just being about in a team, you know. He's talking about, you know, we got each other, and it's all we, you know, and at the end of the day, that could be all we have, and you just shit on her. Then we come to find out that the brunette, this is actually you know, if not the first appearance, one of the first appearances of what ended up being the Black Queen. She's a psychic vampire-like, and she ended up feeding on the guy that she picked up. If the X-Men had not ended up in that bar at that night, it is a pretty good chance that the Juggernaut would have died. She would have just sucked all his life force and energy, because she said, you know, he was strong and smelled good, so they blew it. Now, I've reviewed these before and stuff, but like I said, one ends up being a little bit about loneliness, and one ends up being a little bit about sticking by the people that you're with. And for some reason, these stories are just polar opposites of where people can end up. But there was two things there was one thing with both these books that really, you know, kind of were similar, and it's the fact that H.E.R.O's journey, the journey in H.E.R.O by the Super Caveman, all got started over women. You know, everybody was getting mad because he was getting all the women. Okay, and then what Chris Claremont did with this, the trigger again was the thing about women. But what was different about this is that basically Kitty Pryde, who had been loyal and had a relationship with Peter, you know, it was more than just being a piece of tail, just to be blunt about it, not crude or anything like that. And what really started the fight in this is that the Juggernaut was trying to get a piece of tail. And here's these two guys basically willing to fight and destroy everything. Juggernaut ended up destroying the bar and the building and stuff. It's kind of symbolic to how Peter had crushed Kitty Pryde's, you know, pretty much world. You know, she kind of built her world around, you know, her and Peter and the X-Men and stuff. And it was just amazing to me how what was similar between the two of them is basically, after all those years of having a relationship with Kitty, he blows it all up over a piece of tail he got on an alien planet. And the Juggernaut gets all mad because he loses a piece of tail, you know, at a bar, because, you know, the X-Men coming in there and doing their thing to teach Peter a lesson and stuff. And I just thought that was really cool how Claremont was able to write and mirror off these two guys kind of in the same situation. And I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional about the bar coming down, and the fact that, you know, these two guys are Peter's more willing to fight over, you know, and destroy everything. He's not willing to fight for Kitty's relationship, but he's willing to just destroy everything because of some girl he met on an alien planet. And Juggernaut is willing to fight because, you know, you knocked me out of some tail and pissed me off when I was just trying to have a night out. You know, so kind of tells you, you know, about priorities and loyalty and what is important and what's the difference between a relationship and basically something that's just not as substantial. And so there you go, Adrian, Starkey. You know, if you got any more requests or reviews you might want me to do or something like that, or anything, you know, you got on your mind, feel free to come over to the Howlermouse page on Facebook. You know, you don't even really have to like it. I don't think it's closed. And just leave a little comment. All right, guys. Catch you later.